The morning sun shimmered through the tall glass windows of the Royal Crest Hotel, one of the most luxurious hotels in the city. The marble floor gleamed, the air smelled of imported flowers, and behind the grand reception desk stood a group of elegantly dressed employees, whispering and laughing among themselves. Then the glass doors opened slowly. A woman entered. Her clothes were plain, her shoes worn, and her hands trembled slightly as she clutched an old leather purse. Her name was Elena Morales, a single mother who had spent years cleaning offices and homes, always dreaming of something better. Today, she came to this hotel seeking a job, any job. At the counter sat Mr. Charles Davenport, the hotel's owner, a man known for his arrogance as much as his fortune. He was surrounded by his staff, sipping espresso as if the world existed only to serve him. When he noticed Elena standing nervously by the desk, he smirked. "Yes? What is it you want?" he asked coldly, barely looking up. Elena swallowed hard. "Sir, I heard there's an opening for a cleaning position. I'm here to apply." The receptionists exchanged mocking glances. One of them whispered, "Look at her clothes. She probably can't even read." They chuckled quietly, trying to hide their laughter. Mr. Davenport leaned back in his chair, his expression filled with disdain. "A cleaning position? Here? My dear, this is the Royal Crest, not some roadside motel. We don't just hire anyone who walks through that door." Elena kept her head bowed, her voice soft but steady. "Please, sir, I work hard. I can clean rooms, wash linens, polish floors, anything. Just give me a chance." The staff burst into quiet laughter. Mr. Davenport smirked, amused by her persistence. Then, with a hint of cruelty, he reached for a document lying on the counter, a stack of papers filled with elegant, flowing Arabic script. "You see this?" he said, waving the document in front of her. "This is a contract from our partners in Dubai. No one here has been able to translate it correctly yet." He paused, his eyes glinting with arrogance. "If you can tell me what this says, I'll hire you on the spot and give you my entire month's salary." The room erupted in laughter. One of the receptionists whispered, "Oh, this should be good. She probably doesn't even know what language that is." Elena looked at the document quietly. Her heart pounded in her chest, but she said nothing. Mr. Davenport smirked again. "Well, go on. Impress us. What does it say?" She hesitated for a moment, then took the paper gently into her hands. The elegant Arabic letters danced before her eyes. Familiar, comforting. Everyone leaned in, waiting for her to fail. And then, in a calm, clear voice, Elena began to read. For a moment, the only sound in the room was the soft ticking of the lobby clock. Everyone, the receptionists, the manager, even Mr. Davenport, stared at Elena with mocking smiles, expecting her to fumble or mumble nonsense. But when she opened her mouth, her voice was clear, confident, and flawless. "In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful," she began, her tone steady, her pronunciation perfect. The laughter stopped instantly. She continued reading fluently, translating every line into English without hesitation. "This contract signifies the partnership between Royal Crest International and Alhambra Holdings. The parties agree to mutual cooperation and the expansion of the luxury branch in Abu Dhabi." Each word rolled off her tongue as if she had been born speaking Arabic. Her voice carried through the lobby, echoing softly between the marble columns. The staff stood frozen. One of the receptionist's jaws literally dropped. The manager's pen slipped from his hand and clattered to the floor. Elena went on, word for word, line by line, translating legal phrases with precision. She didn't stumble once. When she finished, she calmly placed the document back on the counter and looked up. The silence that followed was deafening. Mr. Davenport blinked rapidly, as though his brain couldn't process what he had just witnessed. You can read Arabic?" he finally stammered. Elena nodded politely. "Yes, sir. I studied languages in university before I had to leave to take care of my mother. I speak Arabic, Spanish, and English." A hush fell over the entire lobby. Even the sound of the fountain outside seemed to fade away. One of the young employees who had laughed earlier whispered under her breath, "Oh my God, yeah, she's actually brilliant." Elena stood there quietly, her hands clasped in front of her, humble yet radiant. She hadn't raised her voice, hadn't shown anger or pride, just quiet strength. Mr. Davenport's face turned pale. The arrogant smile was gone. For the first time, he seemed unsure of himself. He straightened his suit jacket and cleared his throat. desperately trying to regain control of the situation. "Well," he said awkwardly, forcing a smile. "I suppose that was impressive." But the staff could feel it. The power in the room had shifted. The man who had mocked her moments ago now looked small and foolish. Elena met his gaze calmly. "Does that mean I got the job, sir?" she asked softly. He hesitated. He could feel every eye in the lobby on him, the staff waiting to see if he would keep his word. His pride was at war with his conscience. "Yes," he said at last, barely above a whisper. "You're hired." The staff exchanged shocked glances, but Elena didn't smile. She simply nodded, holding her dignity like a crown invisible to all but those who could feel her quiet fire. She turned to leave, but as she did, one of the employees, the youngest girl at the reception desk, rushed toward her. "Ma'am," she said gently, her voice trembling. I'm sorry for laughing earlier. You didn't deserve that." Elena smiled kindly. "It's all right," she said. "Life teaches us all lessons. Some sooner, some later." The girl nodded, tears in her eyes. But the moment Elena stepped toward the door, something unexpected happened. The tall man in a dark suit who had been sitting silently in the corner of the lobby, a man no one had really noticed, stood up and clapped slowly. Everyone turned toward him. His expression was calm but knowing. "Mr. Davenport," he said, his accent refined, "I believe you owe this woman far more than a cleaning job." Mr. Davenport frowned. "And who exactly are you to tell me what I owe her?" The man reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a card, gold-edged, embossed with Arabic lettering. "My name is Omar Alhamra, CEO of Alhamra Holdings, your partner in that very contract." She just translated perfectly. The entire room gasped. Omar turned to Elena with a warm smile. "Miss Morales, I was here today to discuss a partnership expansion, but I think I've found someone far more valuable." Elena blinked, unsure what he meant. Omar continued, "How would you feel about becoming our official translator and cultural liaison? The position pays more than 10 times a cleaner's salary, and frankly, someone of your intellect deserves no less." The words struck the lobby like thunder. The receptionists covered their mouths in disbelief. Mr. Davenport looked like he might faint. Elena stood still, unable to speak. For a moment she thought she must be dreaming. Then she saw the sincerity in Omar's eyes, and realized this was real. Tears welled in her eyes, but she held her chin high. "Sir, I don't know what to say," she whispered. "Say yes," Omar replied kindly. "People like you shouldn't be cleaning floors. You should be opening doors." And just like that, the woman they had mocked minutes earlier had become the most admired person in the room. For a moment, no one moved. The sound of Omar Alhamra's voice still hung in the air like thunder after a storm. Everyone stared at Elena, the once forgotten woman standing tall at the center of the marble lobby, her eyes glistening, her heart racing. The same people who had laughed at her now stood in reverent silence. Mr. Davenport's jaw tightened. He could feel his empire, his pride, slipping through his fingers. He had spent years building the image of a man untouchable, unchallengeable. And now, in less than 10 minutes, a humble woman had exposed the one thing he never expected to lose, his dignity. Omar turned to him calmly, his presence commanding. "Mr. Davenport," he said, "when I chose this hotel as a partner, I did so because I believed you ran it with respect and integrity. What I have witnessed today tells me otherwise." The color drained from Davenport's face. "Mr. Alhamra, please, this is all a misunderstanding." But Omar raised a hand to silence him. "No, what I saw was arrogance without wisdom, and cruelty without cause. This woman, whom you mocked, just proved that her intelligence and composure are worth more than your entire staff's pretensions combined." Gasps spread across the room. The receptionists lowered their eyes, unable to meet Elena's gaze. Omar then faced her again. "Miss Morales, I insist, come with me to Dubai. You will have housing, a full team under your direction, and the respect you deserve. You will represent my company in international negotiations. What you did today shows not only knowledge but grace under humiliation, and that is the mark of a true leader." Elena stood frozen, trying to comprehend the magnitude of what was happening. Her mind flashed back to long nights scrubbing floors, her mother's tired hands, the empty cupboards, the endless prayers for a chance, just one chance. Now it was here. Her voice trembled slightly as she spoke. "Mr. Alhambra, I don't even know how to thank you." He smiled gently, by never lowering your head again. Tears welled in her eyes. She nodded. Meanwhile, Mr. Davenport's assistant approached nervously. "Sir, the board is on line 2. They're asking about the Alhambra contract." Davenport's hand shook. He turned to Omar, his voice cracking. "You wouldn't really cancel the partnership over this, would you?" Omar's eyes were cold. "I don't cancel partnerships, Mr. Davenport. I reassign them. As of today, the Royal Crest Hotel will no longer represent my brand. I will personally ensure Miss Morales receives the contract you disrespected." The room gasped again, louder this time. Davenport looked like he'd been struck. His empire was crumbling right there in front of everyone. He opened his mouth to protest, but Omar cut him off once more. "And as for your promise, Mr. Davenport," he gestured to the document, "you said you would give this woman your full month's salary if she translated that document correctly. I expect a man of your wealth to keep his word." All eyes turned toward Davenport. His lips pressed into a thin, bitter line. Slowly, he reached into his jacket, took out his checkbook, and began writing. His hands trembled so much that his pen scratched the paper. When he finished, he shoved the check across the counter toward Elena without meeting her eyes. "Here," he muttered. Elena didn't move to take it. She looked at him calmly, not with anger, but with quiet pity. "I didn't do this for money, Mr. Davenport," she said softly. "I came here looking for work, not revenge. But maybe this will help you remember. No job makes you better than the person who's asking for one." For the first time, he had no response. She turned to leave, but Omar stopped her. "Wait." He picked up the check and handed it to her himself. "Then consider it a gift, not from him, but from the universe. You've earned it." Elena smiled gently, accepting it at last. As they walked toward the doors, the staff, the same people who had mocked her earlier, now stepped aside in silence. A few whispered apologies. Others simply bowed their heads, too ashamed to speak. When the glass doors opened, sunlight streamed in, golden and warm. For Elena, it felt like the dawn of a new life. Outside, she paused for a moment, taking a deep breath. The city stretched before her, vast and bright, full of possibility. She thought of her mother, of the years she'd spent believing she was invisible. Not anymore. A black luxury car waited at the curb. Omar opened the door for her himself. "Shall we?" he said with a kind smile. Elena looked back one last time at the hotel, the place where she had been humiliated and reborn all in the same hour. As she stepped into the car, the young receptionist who had apologized earlier ran out onto the steps calling, "Miss Morales." Elena turned. The girl's eyes were wide with tears. "You've changed the way I'll look at people for the rest of my life. Thank you." Elena smiled warmly. "Then I've already done my job." The car pulled away, leaving behind the glittering hotel, and a room full of people forever changed by the woman they had once laughed at. That night, headlines spread across social media and news outlets. "Hotel tycoon, humiliated after mocking job applicant who turns out to be a linguistics expert." From cleaner to CEO, the inspiring story of Elena Morales. And somewhere high above the glowing skyline, a single truth echoed like a whisper in the wind. Never underestimate the quiet ones, for they often carry the loudest destiny. The air inside the lobby was thick, so thick that every breath felt heavy. The golden light pouring from the chandeliers no longer seemed elegant, but harsh, almost cruel, illuminating every uncomfortable expression, every shameful smirk that had turned into regret. For the first time since she walked through those glass doors, Elena was not invisible. She stood at the center of the marble floor, her hands trembling slightly, not from fear, but from the overwhelming rush of adrenaline that flooded her veins. Her eyes, dark and calm, met Mr. Davenport's, who now looked like a man who had just realized he'd made a very public mistake. But Elena didn't speak. She didn't need to. Omar Alhambra, the billionaire investor from Dubai, whose name carried weight in every major financial circle, turned to her with something between admiration and disbelief. "You read that document," he said slowly, his deep voice echoing through the silence. "With perfect accuracy. You even understood the idioms. That was not simple translation. That was mastery." The receptionists who had laughed moments ago now exchanged nervous glances. One of them, a young woman with perfectly styled hair, whispered under her breath, "How did she even—" Omar's eyes flicked toward her. and she fell silent immediately. Mr. Davenport forced an awkward smile, trying to regain control of the situation. "Well," he said, chuckling weakly, "that was impressive. I suppose she's had some education?" Omar interrupted sharply. "Some education? Mr. Davenport, this document was written in a dialect that even trained diplomats find difficult. I've worked with translators across Europe who can't handle this level of nuance. And you turned it into a joke?" Davenport's smile froze. His throat went dry. He had no reply. Omar stepped closer, lowering his voice, but making sure everyone could still hear. "Tell me, Mr. Davenport, what kind of leader humiliates someone asking for honest work? What kind of man mistakes humility for weakness?" The lobby was silent except for the faint hum of the air conditioning. Even the guests who had gathered by the doorway watched in awe. Elena looked down, feeling a strange mix of emotions: vindication, disbelief, and deep sadness. She had faced insults before, but never had someone stood up for her like this. Then, unexpectedly, Omar turned back to her. "Miss Morales," he said softly, "if you don't mind me asking, how did you learn Arabic?" Elena hesitated. For a moment her past flashed before her eyes like a film reel. "My father," she said quietly. "He was a translator at the United Nations. He taught me languages instead of bedtime stories. When he died, I promised I'd never forget what he gave me." Omar nodded slowly, visibly moved. "Then you kept that promise. With honor." Mr. Davenport shifted uncomfortably. "I think this is getting out of hand," he muttered, tugging at his tie. "This is still my establishment." But before he could finish, Omar turned to him once again, his eyes sharp and calm like a blade. "No, Mr. Davenport," he said. "This establishment now represents a decision I have to make. I was considering investing in your hotel chain, a partnership worth several $1,000,000. But now, after witnessing how you treat the people who come to you with humility, I must reconsider." The color drained completely from Davenport's face. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. The staff looked horrified. A manager near the corner whispered something to another employee, her face pale as paper. The whispers spread quickly like fire. "He's going to cancel the deal. Davenport's finished." And then the impossible happened. Omar smiled, not cruelly, but knowingly. "Unless," he said, pausing deliberately, "you can find it in yourself to show true leadership and keep your word." My word?" Davenport stammered. Omar's gaze fell to the printed document on the counter. "You said that if this woman translated the document correctly, you would give her your entire monthly salary. Did you not?" The entire room froze again. Elena's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't taken his words seriously. It had been mockery, pure and simple. But now those words were coming back to haunt him, witnessed by the most powerful man in the room. Davenport's lips tightened. "That was clearly a joke," he said quickly. Omar shook his head slowly. "A man's word is no joke, especially when given publicly." He turned to Elena once more. "Miss Morales, what would you do with his salary, if it were truly yours?" Elena hesitated. "Honestly," she said softly, "I'd probably pay my mother's medical bills. She's been sick for years. And maybe I'd fix the roof in our apartment. It leaks every time it rains." The room fell silent again. For the first time, Davenport's expression changed. Just a flicker of guilt, quickly hidden beneath pride. Omar looked him dead in the eye. "So, Mr. Davenport, what will it be? Will you honor your promise, or walk away from your integrity?" Seconds passed, like minutes. Davenport's hand twitched. He could feel everyone's eyes on him. His employees, his, guests, the billionaire investor whose decision could make or break his empire. Finally, he let out a sharp sigh. "Fine," he snapped, reaching into his jacket for his checkbook. "If that's what it takes to end this spectacle, then so be it." He scribbled furiously, tore the check, and slammed it onto the counter. The sound echoed. "Here, take it," he said bitterly. "Congratulations." Elena looked at the check, but didn't move. Her voice was calm, painfully calm. "I didn't come here to humiliate anyone," she said quietly. "I came because I needed a job. But now I see something more clearly than ever. Sometimes the person cleaning the floors has more honor than the one sitting in the penthouse." Omar nodded approvingly. "Well said." The moment lingered. Raw, electric, unforgettable. The world seemed to hold its breath. Then Omar turned to his assistant. "Prepare my car," he said. "Miss Morales will be joining me for lunch. We have business to discuss." Davenport's head snapped up. What? Omar smiled faintly. I believe I've just found someone worth investing in. The limousine glided silently through the city streets, its tinted windows reflecting the neon lights that danced across the skyline. Inside, Elena sat quietly, her hands folded on her lap, still in disbelief. Everything that had happened in the last hour felt like a dream. Too vast, too surreal, too miraculous to be real. She could still see the faces of the women at the reception desk, the laughter, the mockery, the disbelief when she read the document. She could still hear Mr. Davenport's condescending tone, his arrogance, his challenge meant to humiliate her in front of everyone. And yet, somehow, she had turned humiliation into revelation. Across from her sat Omar Alhamra, the man whose quiet authority had changed everything. He looked at her with the calm curiosity of someone who saw potential where others saw insignificance. Miss Morales, he began, tell me, what made you walk into that hotel today? What made you face the world knowing how it can treat people who come from nothing? Elena smiled faintly, her gaze drifting toward the city lights outside. Because I promised my mother I would never stop trying. She always told me that dignity doesn't live in wealth or titles, it lives in effort. And if I gave up, I'd lose the only thing I had left that was truly mine. Omar nodded slowly. Your mother must be a remarkable woman. She is, Elena said softly. Even when she was sick, she'd make me repeat one phrase every morning. God sees what people ignore. And today, I think I finally understand what she meant. A silence fell between them. Not awkward, but sacred. It was the kind of silence that fills a space after something profound is spoken. Then Omar leaned forward slightly. I want you to take a position in my company. We are expanding our philanthropic division in Europe, and I need someone who understands both hardship and humanity. You'll manage cultural programs, education projects, language initiatives, things that help people rise the way you just did. Elena's breath caught in her throat. Sir, I don't know what to say. He smiled gently. Say yes. Tears welled up in her eyes. Yes, she whispered. 1,000 times yes. He extended his hand. Then it settled. As they shook hands, the car slowed to a stop in front of a tall glass building overlooking the river, the global headquarters of Alhamra Enterprises. Omar stepped out first and turned to her. From this moment on, he said, you're not a maid looking for work. You're the newest director in my company. Her heart skipped. She stepped out of the car, feeling the cool evening air brush against her face. The lights of the city seemed brighter somehow, as if the universe itself was applauding her courage. Inside the building, a secretary greeted them and led Elena to a corner office, her new office. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a view of the skyline, a desk, made of marble and glass. She touched the smooth surface with trembling fingers. It was real, all of it. Do you like it? Omar asked. Elena turned, still speechless. I've dreamed of working in an office like this since I was a child, but I never thought it would happen like this. Omar smiled. Dreams have strange ways of coming true, especially for those who keep walking when the world tells them to stop. The next morning, news outlets around the world exploded with headlines. Hotel mogul humiliates job seeker, ends up losing multi-million-dollar contract. The cleaning lady who spoke Arabic shocks the business world. From dust to destiny, the story of Elena Morales. Social media erupted. Millions of people shared the video recorded secretly by a hotel guest. The clip went viral within hours. The look on Davenport's face, Elena's calm poise, the way she translated the Arabic document flawlessly while being mocked. People everywhere began using her name as a symbol of dignity. Elena Morales trended worldwide. Interviews poured in, magazines requested features, and universities offered her honorary degrees. But Elena stayed grounded. She refused to let fame distort the purpose of her journey. Instead, she used her newfound position and influence to create a foundation in her mother's name, the Morales Foundation for Dignity and Education. Its mission, to help unemployed women find training, mentorship, and opportunities. Within a year, the foundation had expanded to 5 countries. Thousands of women who had once been invisible now stood with pride, thanks to the woman who refused to stay silent. As for Mr. Davenport, his empire collapsed quietly. Investors withdrew. His reputation was ruined. He sold the hotel and retreated from public life, haunted by the memory of that day, the day he learned the cost of pride. Yet even in his downfall, Elena never spoke ill of him. In every interview, when asked about the humiliation she endured, she gave, the same gentle answer. Humiliation is only permanent if you let it define you. I chose to let it refine me. Years later, Elena returned to the same hotel, now under new ownership. The lobby was renovated, the chandeliers brighter, the staff kinder. A young cleaner greeted her with a shy smile. "Good evening, ma'am," she said. Elena smiled back. "Good evening." She paused, turning to the girl. "Do you like working here?" The girl shrugged. "It's hard sometimes, but I'm saving to study languages. My dream is to travel, maybe work for a big company one day." Elena's eyes softened. "Then don't ever stop. Even when people laugh, even when it seems impossible. Keep learning. Keep trying. You never know who might be watching." The girl nodded, her eyes bright. "Thank you, ma'am." Elena smiled, walked toward the exit, and glanced once more at the place where her life had changed forever. Outside, the city lights shimmered on the river, and she whispered the words her mother once told her, words that had carried her through every hardship. God sees what people ignore. And for the first time, she truly believed that those words had guided her all along. She had entered that hotel as a desperate woman. She left it as a symbol of resilience, and the world would never forget the day the cleaning lady spoke Arabic.